Lesson 4-6 is interpreting the remainder. Our objective today is to provide practice solving division number stories and interpreting the remainder. So if we take a look at our math message, there are 100 minutes of computer time for 8 students to share equally. We want to figure out how many minutes should each student get. So sometimes it's helpful to draw a picture when you have a number story. So here they've drawn out 8 boxes to represent the 8 students, and then we know that we have to split the 100 minutes between the 8 students equally. Here they've drawn out the minutes, and then we know again, or they put minutes in here so we can represent how many minutes each student gets. So if we were to take a look at that problem and write a number sentence, we could write there's 100 minutes divided by 8 students, and that equals a variable, and they use the variable m. Now we need to find the answer. So you can use whatever division method you prefer. I'm going to use the traditional method. 8 doesn't go into 1, but 8 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract and bring down. 8 goes into 20 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. Subtract, and I have a remainder of 4. So my answer, how many minutes does each student get, is really going to be 12. And I'm going to label it minutes so I know what we're talking about. But what does that remainder represent? Well, in this case, the remainder represents the minutes left over. So what do I do with that remainder? I have 3 choices. I can ignore it, pretend it's not there, report it as a decimal or a fraction, which in this case would mean that each student gets a part of a minute added on to their 12 minutes, or I could round it up, but if I were to do that, then each student would go over the 100 total minutes once they've taken their turn. So in this problem, I want to ignore it. There will just be 4 minutes where no one is at the computer. Okay, let's take a look at some other times that you might ignore the remainder, round it up, or report it as a decimal or fraction. Other times that you might ignore the remainder would be if you needed to purchase something. Let's say you have $10. CDs are on sale for $3 a piece. You could buy 3 CDs, but you would have $1 left over. That $1 would be your remainder, and you would just ignore it because you can't buy a partial CD. If you brought cookies for your birthday, and you passed out 2 cookies to each student, but there were 4 cookies left over, it would take a lot of time and effort to split those 4 cookies into equal parts for everyone to share. So you would just ignore it, take them home, and enjoy them yourself. When you report something as a decimal, you might think about taking a group of friends out to supper. So if you have a receipt at the end of the night, you want to divide up the receipt equally. And so when you do that, you'll end up with dollars and usually some cents, and that would be your decimal. And then finally, rounding up, if you were having a grill out and you had 20 hamburgers, but buns come 8 to a bag, 2 bags wouldn't be quite enough. So you need to round up to 3 bags to make sure you have enough for everyone. If you were getting on the bus and the bus could hold 50 people, but 63 were going on the field trip, you wouldn't leave the 63 behind. You wouldn't take a partial bus, but instead you would round up and take